about the Japanese industry and how precarious many people find the independent industry to be in Japan, which is surprising, I guess, when you think that Japan is one of the richest countries in the world. It's got a very established film industry. Welcome. This is To the Point with me, Patrick Fraser.
And me, Janine Stein.
And this week we're going to be talking about a variety of different things. I was recently at the Udine Film Festival. Sony group results are out, and we're going to be talking about those. And I know that Janine has a few things as well.
I do, but let's start with Udine because that's kind of freshest on my mind. It's just wrapped last week or at the weekend. What was most interesting?
That's right. Well, you're right. I was there for 8 or 9 days, and to me, it was interesting, purely personal point of view, because it's the longest I've spent at that festival. I was actually there from beginning to end, and managed to watch a lot of movies. I had time to do the movies and to go to a lot of the seminars and debates and presentations. So I had a kind of slightly less rushed and fuller experience this time than I have in previous years. So I learned a lot of different thoughts. I saw the opening film, which was something I've been looking forward to for a long time, the Anthony Chen film, We Are All Strangers, which of course he then reveals actually has the opposite title in Chinese. The film is mostly in Chinese language, and it's called We Are Not Strangers in Chinese. um, well, he says it's a counterpoint, and you have to make up your own mind, I think, as you watch the film, whether the people are all living separately and revolving around each other rather than interacting with each other. So, I understand. I kind of understand his point, but Anthony's such an intelligent and interesting guy. He had many, many different interesting things to say about the production of this film, um, how he brought the young star uh, maturity. And this is the guy's name is Po Jia Le. He's a Singaporean who appeared, I think, at age eight or nine in Anthony's first film, Ilo Ilo. Had been at some stage almost delinquent. He was ready to drop out of school, but decided that acting was going to save him. And Anthony and Yo Yan Yan, the star, basically encouraged him along this journey, and he's now regarded really very highly as an actor.
What else did you see?
Well, one of the things I saw towards the end of the festival is something that I've been looking forward to seeing for a while. It's a film called Mother Booming. It stars Fan Bingbing, the Chinese superstar, in a film about social issues in northern Malaysia, the area of Kedah, which was transferred from Thailand to Malaysia, or rather Malaya. That kind of is the point. When Malaya was under British rule in 1907, and this gave rise to all sorts of problems which festered and lay under the surface for a long time, notably issues of land reform and title deeds and things. And this kind of exploded nearly 90 years later, in 1998, and that's kind of when most of the film is set. Fan Bingbing, who's known to be a tremendous beauty, plays a woman, a peasant, sunburnt farmer woman, um, obviously was made to look much uglier than in reality, a prosthetic nose and a dark tan, and plays a shaman by night. So she's a farmer by daytime, and a shaman who's undoing black magic in the evening, in her spare time, if you like. Also trying to intervene in some of these land disputes. So it's political and it's social. And this film was made as a pan-Asian co-production with Taiwanese, Malaysian, Hong Kong, Middle Eastern money, and even an Italian co-producer. Um, it, it's one of the four films that was banned from the Hong Kong Film Awards, and therefore we can presume that it will not be released in theatres in either Hong Kong or in mainland China. And I wanted to know from Fan Bingbing whether her current status in the mainland Chinese industry was allowing her to do these rather more interesting social films, which clearly would not be playing in China. Um, she kind of ducked the question, but she kind of answered it as well. I mean, she didn't answer the request for information where I was asking her about her status, her ban, and whether it's been completed now, because we also believe that she may have made recently a film in China. So her status is a little bit unclear to me. And I mean, I think her ban was handed down in 2018 or 2019, and normally they're for about 5 years. So that that should have been expunged by now. But it's clear that she's making these films, more films outside. She talked about this kind of thing as an opportunity. She talked about slowing down. You know, she said she used to make eight or nine films a year when she was in mainland. Now she's making one or two. Um, so she didn't actually answer the status about the question of her status, but she did say, that we're all part of a greater Asian film industry family. We all speak the same language of cinema, and the issues of nationality are not such a worry to her. I mean, obviously, I got the impression that she was enjoying life rather more, perhaps, than when she was under pressure to perform all the time as a Chinese superstar.
Where is she based now?
Well, good question. I think she probably lives mostly in China, but I believe her residence is in Hong Kong. And I think local reports say that she got herself an investment visa in Hong Kong, so she's now a Hong Kong resident. Um, so
It sounds like the 8 movies a year sweatshop condition, so she probably must be loving not doing that and behaving more like an international superstar who really picks her project.
I would think so. I would think so. I mean, I doubt she gets paid as much for these things, but maybe that doesn't necessarily worry her. And she apparently arrived in Udine on her own private jet, so she's still got some money.
What else happened at the festival that's worth
Well,
noting?
there's lots of things happening. I mean, it's grown into an event of some scale now, as I think I've said to you before. They have a parallel industry track called Focus Asia. And within that, I did a couple of presentations on box office and distribution of film. But I also sat down and listened to a number of other seminars and discussions. And one of them was talking about the Japanese industry and how precarious many people find the independent industry to be in Japan, which is surprising, I guess, when you think that Japan is one of the richest countries in the world. It's got a very established film industry, and its films actually sell internationally. And that was one of the points that came out of my research recently. You know how well Japanese films get sold into particularly the European market. There's been more than 200 Japanese films have had theatrical releases in Europe in the last 10 years. That's going it actually. But the budgets still remain very, very small, and film funding is very precarious and difficult. There was one filmmaker there who talked about making his latest movie on 80,000 US dollars, really not very much. And another independent who'd made their film, which they described as mid-budget, on 650,000 US dollars. So Japan is making plenty of movies under $1 million. So really quite small by Asian standards. Um, and that is the interesting context when you also know that the production committee system, which is how Japanese films are often made, both studio level movies and independents, is slowly breaking down. It's seen as very conservative, kind of cost sharing rather than genuinely risk taking and entrepreneurial. So I think there's quite a few different initiatives find to find other ways of making Japanese movies. And the Japanese government is currently encouraging companies to get into debt financing, to start to use banks. And they've actually commissioned a study so that all of the Japanese film industry agrees on the same standards. And that will allow the banks and the producers to talk the same language when they're talking about risk and finance and payback periods and all these things. That's a study which is ongoing and will be handed down later this year or the beginning of next. But they're hoping that the banks will step in there. I recently had a long conversation with a company called K2 Pictures, which is a newish, like 2 or 3 years old production company attached to a film fund. They have raised 30 million US dollars. So that if you think about it, they can actually make a lot of Japanese movies if their budgets are like that. But in fact, one of the things they're hoping to do is, first of all, break away from the production committee system. But secondly, choose their own budgets as appropriate rather than have other people telling them what the price should be.
How does this compare to filmmaking in other markets in Asia?
Depends. That's small change in China. The average budget is much bigger, um, but there have been a lot of problems in China. I think that there have been a lot of those expensive movies that cost 30, 40, $50 million which have not worked at the box office. So I don't have the data yet, but I think we'll see Chinese budgets coming down. And we also know that filmmaking in Korea has become very much more expensive to the point that even Netflix is pushing back and saying, "Stop it! There's got to be a ceiling." Obviously, there's an irony because many people blame Netflix for pushing up the prices of production in Korea. But again, I think that the figures are all far higher than those Japanese average budgets, but maybe coming down. So we're leveling up. We're finding a level somewhere in the middle, perhaps.
Well, we spoke to Udine directors, founders, organizers last time, and do you think the festival, their 28th edition, lived up to their hopes?
I do, in general. I mean, it was a fun event. Most of the program worked. Most of the guests turned up. So from those organisational points of view, it was interesting. It was successful. Around the town, it's an old with a medieval core, but there were lots of shops and restaurants willing to play along. I went to a few gelato shops, and each one of them had a festival menu. So that was people in the city were playing along, um, which is a good thing to see. And I got the impression that the city officials were very happy with having such another big and now relatively high profile event in their small town.
And what else is going on
Because
for you?
I'm going to be in Macau in a week's time, emceeing a presentation for a new Macanese film. There are not many of those that get theatrical releases. So I'm going to be doing that. It's called The Violin
You were looking at Sony results.
Case.
What did you
Yeah,
see?
putting my financial hat on again. Well, the results were two sets of results in one. It was the fourth quarter results and the full year results. And honestly, the company is holding its own. Very unexciting results in some way. Revenues were up a fraction, profits were down a fraction in some of the divisions. They had a company with three different entertainment divisions: games, music, and pictures, just meaning film and TV. And it's almost unheard of that all three move in the same direction. So this time, two of them were up and one of them was down. But then this company is very good at forecasting and telling you what they're doing for the next year. They're very accurate and they update their forecasts very regularly. And for next year, or rather now the current year, they're looking at actually a different two of the three entertainment divisions improving and one being in slow decline. So there's always two up, one down. It seems is the current trend. I think the company's looking at costs quite carefully, and I think everyone's worried about what's going to happen to costs and potential logistical difficulties caused by the war in Iran. But so far, I don't think that was a major theme for the results they've just reported.
You mentioned K-pop Demon Hunters. There was another report.
That was a different thing.
But made by Sony.
Made by Sony. I hadn't made that connection. Actually. I was looking at it from a Netflix point of view. I think you are the one who tracks Netflix's figures very closely. And I saw a report this week saying it has now become Netflix's most viewed film of all time. Do you have the data that confirms that, Janine?
I haven't done my own deep dive into K-pop Demon Hunters, but I did love the film, which doesn't mean anything. People did think for a short time that it was a Korean film, or very obviously an American film, but its Korean soul is so deep. It totally blurs the line. It is an international production, but it's an American production. It shows up on American charts, and it's listed as an American production. So I was also looking at Beef, which is a TV series, which is also deep, 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 deep Korean soul. You can watch it and you just understand a whole lot of things about Korea, about America, about that whole crossover. Beef was one of two foreign titles on the Korean top 10 for Netflix in the whole of April. I've been tracking kind of quietly Korean companies' efforts in the US and Europe. Everyone wants to be international. Everyone wants to go international, whatever that means. In the US, in the whole of April, and Netflix, because Netflix is the most transparent out of all the streamers, in April, not one single Korean show showed up on the American top 10. Not one. Okay. So that means it's not the Korean shows are not making a mark, and if they are, they're like far down, and I don't have visibility until Netflix releases its half yearly. So I'm thinking it's quite a bit of a spectacular fail so far. Then they'll get it, but not until they can do what Beef did, do what K-pop Demon Hunters did, and I wonder how far they are from that. So I think Korean programming, and then I just thought I turned it on its head, and I thought, okay, let me see what Koreans are watching. Koreans are not watching foreign content either; they're watching 100% Korean content. So we're looking at environments that want to be in each other's space, but they're not in each other's space because they don't watch each other's content. So I'm very interested to see how this plays. And then my other headlines for today, I guess this week, is BBC Studios just announced another restructuring in Asia, and that is Phil Hartman, who was heading up the whole operation out of Singapore. He's gone, he's going, he's out by the middle of the year. And honestly, I don't think anyone was shocked. It's just one of those moves that it just feels almost inevitable. And I think BBC Studios has something genuinely powerful in Asia. Their licensing business is absolutely real. They own some of the most well-known titles in the world, but they don't have that like cultural moment that everyone speaks about. What is their K-pop Demon Hunter? And they don't have it, but they control rights to really powerful programming, grown-up programming, amazing drama, if you have a taste for that. But clearly in Asia, they don't need the heavyweight team they used to have.
What do you think they need to do in Asia? Do you think they need to become a streaming platform, or do you think they need
Well,
to
they have a streaming platform, and
make,
that's
make
BBC
more?
iPlayer. So they have it, but they just don't have, if I can say, they just don't have the balls that Netflix, that Amazon, that Disney have. They just don't, they never went that route. So they've got this BBC iPlayer. Most people I know get BBC iPlayer are still from the UK through some kind of VPN structure, which I don't have. But the iPlayer, I think it's like available. You have to subscribe to a bunch of channels that I don't know. I don't get access to BBC iPlayer.
I
So
honestly wasn't aware that the iPlayer was available outside the UK. I thought most people were doing exactly what you just said, using a VPN and pretending to be in the UK. Okay.
but they're watching it, but it's just the people who've got VPNs. People do have VPNs, but they're not VPNing. Well, the British people are, but I don't know. The BBC iPlayer is available, but no one talks about it. So maybe this is going to change. Who knows? I also at home. I mean, they are commercial in Asia, but at home they just got bigger problems than worrying about. I think anyway. So they haven't made a mark. They don't have. I mean, when was the last time anybody's talked to you about BBC? No one. Just when they make headlines for doing weird things in the UK. So there's just no cultural moment in Asia around BBC titles. So that's it.
I wonder if that is something that can be rectified. I mean, you just said that their drama is excellent. Their nature and natural history programming is world class. It's also David Attenborough's birthday this week, as an FYI. Do they need to convert their existing programming? Do you think, or do they need to do something? That is a different kind of program.
I mean, they've got such a hold on natural history. I don't know how, other than NHK, I don't know anyone who puts that much money into natural history. Everyone's heard of David Attenborough, but when last did you watch a David Attenborough show ahead of something else that Netflix was putting in your inbox every 5 minutes?
Good point. Good point. Good point.
So no, I just don't. I think while I do love their drama, nobody has heard of any of the latest BBC Studios titles, including me. So
in some cases, the BBC licenses its shows to a lot of people around, a lot of companies around Asia. It has a small selection of channels, and in other cases, it's co-producing with the streamers. I'm asking you whether you think maybe they should simply take the whole leap and become a Netflix competitor.
I just don't know that they've got the stomach for it.
Fair enough.
Actually, if you ask me what I think they should do, I think they should stop it. They should license. They should do what Sony did. Sony also killed that streaming platform. Do what Sony did. At home, everyone's got a streaming. All the national broadcasters have streaming platforms. Yeah, just let's do it at home. I wouldn't be surprised if they kill iPlayer in Asia. Talking about killing things, the One Channel, the Korean One Channel, is going away in July. That was started by Sony 16 years ago. 16 years ago. And a different time, different place. I think the new owners, KC Global Media, has decided there's no longer viable, so they're pulling the plug on it. There is no more need for Korean linear channel. 16 years ago there was, it was amazing, but there's just it's been overtaken by time. So that exit is happening. What else do I have? Yeah, I think the thing that's top of mind for me is Asian producers' attempts to be international, because I am deeply skeptical of this be international. I don't know how it works. I think K-pop Demon Hunters and Beef are the most international that I can think of at the moment.
You made the point that neither of those originated from Asia. They were North American made shows, with a deep Asian soul.
Is this I think this might be a model for what people may try and achieve.
Well, I'm just going to go back to the Sony. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the Sony figures and see whether I can support your argument or disagree with your argument. And looking at I'm going to have to read this here. Box office for some of Sony's films in the last year. Karate Kid Legends, which is obviously an American film, but again based on Asian IP. Karate Kid Legends made $117 million worldwide. It's one of only a few for Sony last year. And the biggest film they had in the last financial year was purely Japanese. Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle made $354 million. The other one that crossed $100 million was another Japanese animation, Chainsaw Man, the movie Reze Art. And the last one, they had four that crossed $100 million last year. The fourth one was Anaconda. So one purely American, two purely Japanese, and one Asian soul made in America. So that's been this week's edition of To the Point with myself, Patrick Fraser, and Janine Stein. And we're going to tease you and invite you to come and watch future episodes as well. Janine, thank you very much.